Hi, total recapped here. Today we will be going through the events of a 2016 American superhero film, Captain America Civil War. Now let's get right into the movie. The movie begins in a Siberian Hydra base in 1991, where James Buchanan Barnes, nicknamed Bucky, is brainwashed to be turned into the Winter Soldier and is sent to acquire the Super Soldier Serum, and in the process, kills the people present in the vehicle. Approximately 1 year after the Ultron incident, Steve Rogers leads a team consisting of Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Falcon to capture Rumlow and Lagos, who is involved in weaponry dealings with terrorists. Rumlow, now going under the alias Crossbones, infiltrates the Institution of Infectious Diseases to steal a biological weapon. The team makes it in time and takes out Rumlow's men one by one. Rumlow is able to buy some time and orders his men to split up and take the biological weapon to the airstrip safely. While the other heroes chase to retrieve the vial, a brawl breaks out between Rumlow and Captain. When Steve is finally able to beat him up, Rumlow reveals his face, which was almost burnt during the incidents at SHIELD headquarters, and tries to kill Captain America along with himself. Luckily, Wanda is able to divert the explosion, but it blasts near a building, killing many Wakandans, which leaves Wanda devastated, and she tearfully looks at the casualties caused by her. Inside a college theater, Tony Stark plays a visual simulation of his last conversation with his parents, Howard and Maria Stark. He approves and funds all the students' projects under the September Grant Foundation, which Tony himself has newly launched. As he heads for the bathroom, a woman from the Human Resources Department confronts Tony about her son's death in Sokovia and blames him for the same. The Lagos tragedy makes the headlines, and the Secretary of State, General Thaddeus Ross, arrives at the Avengers headquarters. As much as he appreciates the heroic deeds of the heroes, he calls them dangerous and presents them with two choices: either work under supervision under a U.S. panel by agreeing to the Sokovian Accords, which have been ratified by 117 countries, or retire. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, a man named Zemo tracks Vasily Karpov, a former Hydra agent who led the brainwashing of the Winter Soldier. Zemo captures him and demands the mission report of December 16, 1991. But Karpov is reluctant to spill out any information to him, and Zemo kills him before taking a book. Back at the headquarters, the Avengers argue about the signing of the records. While Tony believes that limitations should bind them to what they can do, Steve argues that the safest hands are their own, and if they sign the accords, they'll lose the right to make choices during a crisis. Midway through the conversation, Steve receives a text from an unknown number saying that Peggy Carter has passed away, and Steve takes his leave. Sam and Steve attend Peggy's funeral in London, and Sharon Carter reveals that she is Peggy's niece. After the funeral, Natasha approaches Steve and tells her that Tony, Vision, and Rhodes have signed the accords, including herself, with Clint and Wanda holding out. She asks Steve to come to the Vienna conference to sign the accords, but Steve declines the invitation. In Vienna, several national leaders gather to ratify the accords, and Natasha Romanoff comes on behalf of the Avengers. T'Chaka greets her to thank her and the Avengers for agreeing to sign the accords, but is displeased by the absence of Captain America. As the United Nations conference proceeds, T'Challa, the Wakandan king's son, notices security surrounding a van that blasts into a massive explosion, crashing the conference and killing 12 people, including the king. Steve, Sam, and Sharon watch the news about the bombing and find that Bucky has been sighted at the site of the bombing. T'Challa is devastated by his father's death and vows to kill Bucky on sight. Natasha receives a call from Steve, and she warns Steve that if he interferes, he'll get arrested. But Steve has other plans for Bucky. Sharon provides Steve and Sam the required intel to get their hands on Bucky before the German task force, since a manhunt has already been ordered for the Winter Soldier. Captain America arrives in Bucharest at Bucky's apartment and asks him to cooperate, but Bucky refuses, claiming he wasn't involved in the Vienna bombing. Despite Captain's best efforts, Bucky prepares to fight the soldiers in self-defense. One by one, he takes out the soldiers, and Captain tries to stop him while also helping him, ironically. Bucky leaps onto a different building's roof, but Black Panther withholds his escape. Watching Black Panther chase his old friend, Captain America runs after the two into the streets. He steals an SUV to chase after them to catch Bucky, and Black Panther clings onto the SUV. Trying to shake everyone off, Bucky knocks a man off a motorcycle and uses it to escape, but the Panther quickly makes his way towards him and punctures the motorcycle to end the chase. Captain quickly gets out of the SUV and tackles Black Panther away from Bucky, but the police surround them, and War Machine comes flying to arrest all three. Black Panther takes off his mask and reveals himself to be Prince T'Challa. The four men involved in the chase are being transported to Task Force headquarters in Berlin, with Bucky being locked up. On their way, Steve questions T'Challa about his suit being made of vibranium, and the prince tells them about the legend of the Black Panther. When they arrive at the HQ, Steve's shield and Sam's Falcon suit are confiscated by Everett Ross, and they are brought into a room where Tony is on a call with Thaddeus Ross. Tony tells Steve that if he signs the accords now, Bucky will be transferred to an American psych facility instead of a Wakandan jail, and Steve agrees, but only if safeguards are put into place. An argument breaks out between Steve and Tony when Tony tells him that he is keeping Wanda confined under Vision's watch since she's not a citizen of the United States and doesn't have a visa. Steve storms off without signing the accords. Zemo enters the facility disguised as a psychiatrist to assess Bucky. Meanwhile, he gets a package delivered to the outskirts of the city, and when the package is opened, a shockwave breaks the electricity supply for the whole city. As Steve and Sam are headed to get Bucky, Zemo pulls out the book that he had acquired from Karpov and reads the letters written in it, which drive Bucky into madness and a crazy state. Bucky is now brainwashed and complies with orders from Zemo, and Zemo asks him about the mission report on December 16, 1991. Steve and Sam arrive where Bucky is being held and find Zemo lying down on the ground. Steve picks him up and asks him what he wants, and Zemo replies, to see an empire fall. Suddenly, Bucky attacks Sam and knocks him out. He battles T'Challa, Tony, Sharon, and Natasha, and successfully makes his way to a helicopter on the roof. Steve follows and holds the helicopter from taking off using his superhuman strength. He then pushes the helicopter into the river and takes Bucky to a safe hideout with Sam. When Bucky regains consciousness, he finds his metal arm between an industrial press, and Steve questions him about the Vienna bombing and the doctor. Bucky tells him that the doctor wanted to know about Siberia, where Bucky was kept, and other winter soldiers. He says that the other soldiers are far more dangerous than him, and that they could take a whole country down in a night without being spotted. At the Berlin HQ, Tony asks Thaddeus Ross for 36 hours to find Steve, Sam, and Bucky. Natasha points out that they are low on staff members, but Tony has something in mind. Tony flies to Queens to meet up with Peter Parker. He greets Peter and lies to his aunt about his project getting approved for a grant. Peter brings Tony to his room, and Tony confronts him about being Spider-Man. At first, Peter is reluctant to reveal his true identity, but Tony can find his suit, and Peter has to spill the beans. Tony praises Peter for his bravery and courage and asks him to Germany on a mission, and Peter reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Clint pays a visit to Wanda and asks her to come with him since Captain America needs their help, but the two are stopped by Vision. Vision locks Clint, but Wanda manipulates Vision's reality stone and sends him down several levels before escaping. Natasha offers T'Challa Bucky's whereabouts and asks him to join them. Sharon retrieves Captain America's shield and Falcon suit and bids her farewell to Steve with a kiss. At the airport, Captain America marches towards a chopper but is interrupted by Iron Man and War Machine. They ask Steve to turn himself and Barnes in, but Captain America refuses to cooperate. A battle breaks out between Team Iron Man and Team Captain America to stop Rogers and Barnes from leaving. Spider-Man is able to take Falcon and Bucky down, but is caught off guard by Falcon's Red Wing. The others try to stop Captain America, but he is being aided by Clint, Wanda, and Ant-Man. At some point during the fight, Falcon proposes that Steve and Bucky should leave while the rest of them get captured, since the fight wasn't their point but to stop Zemo from waking up other Winter Soldiers. Ant-Man buys the two some time to reach a Quinjet to escape, but they are obstructed by Vision. Captain and Bucky finally reach the Quinjet, but Natasha tries to ask Steve to stop, which he refuses to do, so Natasha helps him get away by holding Black Panther. War Machine flies to stop the Quinjet, and Falcon chases after him. War Machine asks Vision to help him, so Vision shoots at Falcon, but he dodges it, and the attack hits War Machine's suit, shutting it down. As Rhodey experiences freefall, both Falcon and Iron Man try their best to pick him up before he hits the ground, but they fail to do so. Rhodey has now been partially paralyzed, and Natasha is being hunted down by Ross. Friday, Tony's personal AI reports to him about an incident in Berlin, and Tony readies his chopper to leave at once. On their way to Siberia, Bucky asks Steve what will happen to his friends, and Steve responds that he'll deal with it. Barnes finds himself not worthy of being saved over compromising so many lives, but Steve tries to comfort him by saying that everything he did in the past was not his fault. When Tony is on his way to Ross at the Raft prison, he learns that Bucky has been framed for killing T'Chaka by Zemo, the fake psychiatrist who killed the real one and used to be a Sokovian mercenary. Meanwhile, Zemo has already arrived at the ex-Hydra facility and got his hands on the Winter Soldiers who were put into a cryo-sleep. Tony asks Sam about Steve and Bucky's destination at the prison and apologizes for being wrong. He shows Sam the proof of Zemo being the bad guy, and Sam tells him to go alone and as a friend. Tony suits up and flies to Siberia, but is secretly being followed by Black Panther. Seeing the base open, Captain and Bucky buckle up to fight what comes next. To their surprise, they find Tony present there, and Tony apologizes for being on the wrong side this whole time. Together, the three look for Zemo and find him in a chamber that can withstand rocket launches. Bucky is confused to see the other Winter Soldiers dead, and Zemo comments that he was thankful for the soldiers since they brought the three to the base. Captain asks Zemo if he has lost someone, and Zemo replies that he has lost everyone he's loved. He then plays a videotape from December 16, 1991, and says that an empire crumbling from within is as good as dead. Tony watches the CCTV recording and sees Bucky punching his father to death and strangling his mother. Emotions get the best of him, and Tony kills Bucky, but Captain asks him not to do so. Feeling betrayed, Tony goes berserk and hunts for Bucky despite Captain's best efforts to stop him from getting to his friend. Iron Man successfully stops Bucky from escaping, but has to face the two of them at the same time. He keeps up with Bucky and Captain America and knocks Captain against the wall. The Winter Soldier corners Iron Man and tries to break his arc reactor, but a huge laser beam breaks his metal arm. As Captain and Iron Man continue to fight, Zemo sits outside listening to his wife's recording for the last time before deleting it. T'Challa confronts him, and Zemo tells him about the incident in Sokovia, which took his family away from him. He says that he sought revenge, but couldn't kill them on his own, so he tried to break the Avengers from inside, and in the end, he was successful. Black Panther quotes that vengeance has consumed him and is consuming the Avengers too, but he's done dealing with it. Zemo tries to kill himself with a gun, but T'Challa places his hand over the barrel to stop the bullet and locks Zemo. Captain damages Iron Man's armor, rendering it useless, and helps Bucky get up. Tony says that he doesn't deserve the shield, so Captain throws it away and leaves with Bucky. Zemo has been captured and kept imprisoned under Everett Ross. Back at the Avengers headquarters, Tony builds leg braces to help Rhodey recover. A package is delivered to Tony, and when he opens it, he finds an apology from Steve and a phone to contact him. The apology reads that Steve is truly guilty for his actions and for keeping Tony from the truth about his parents, but assures him that whenever he calls for help, Steve will always be present for him. Steve breaks into the raft prison to get his team back. And that was my recap of the movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Now comment on what your favorite part was, and make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, this has been Total Recapped.